Leora was born in a world of endless skies and silver rivers. Her people, the Eliari, were proud beings who lived among the mountains, their cities glowing with crystals that hummed with energy. Among them, Leora was special, because her eyes shone brighter than any crystal. She could see energy patterns, streams of light that others could not. The elders whispered that she had a gift, a power to guide her people through danger. For many years she grew as a child of hope, cherished by her family and admired by the village. But not everyone celebrated her gift. In the Eliari Council, jealousy grew. One noble in particular, Lord Serac, feared her. He believed that her gift could one day challenge his authority. While she was still young, he began plotting in silence. He spread whispers that her eyes were cursed, that the light inside her was unnatural. The people began to doubt what they once praised, and doubt soon turned into fear. One night, when the stars were hidden behind black storm clouds, Lord Serac made his move. He gathered soldiers and accused Leora of being dangerous. He said her glowing eyes would bring ruin. Her parents begged for mercy, but no mercy was given. In a cruel act, her eyes were struck with burning fire. The crystals of her sight shattered forever. The pain was beyond anything she had known. Her light was gone, darkness swallowed her world, and the council declared her useless. The Eliari had no place for one without vision. She was cast aside. Abandoned to the shadows, years passed slowly. Each day colder than the last, Leora wandered like a ghost among ruins and broken lands. She survived by touch and sound, by remembering the paths she once knew. Her heart was heavy with loneliness. No one spoke her name anymore. She was a forgotten soul. Sometimes, when the wind carried voices of children, she would remember the laughter she once shared. But then silence returned, and the silence was heavier than stone. She often sat by the edge of the cliffs. She could not see the valleys below, but she could feel the air on her skin. She could smell the wildflowers and hear the rivers roar. In her mind, she painted pictures of the world she had lost. But with each year, the pictures grew dim. The faces of her parents faded first, then the shapes of the mountains, then even the memory of her own reflection. She wondered if she still looked like herself, or if she was nothing but a shadow now. The Eliari people avoided her. They called her cursed, the girl who lost her light. Some children threw stones when they passed. Others whispered cruel names. Leora bore it in silence. Her heart told her that crying would not bring her sight back. Her strength was her silence, but her silence was also her prison. Inside she was breaking, piece by piece. Her life became a waiting game for death. Yet even in her despair, something strange lingered inside her. A small warmth deep in her chest, it whispered to her in dreams. "You are not finished yet," the voice said. She did not know whose voice it was. But the words kept her alive when everything else was gone. 15 years slipped by like a river carving stone. The world changed, but for Leora, nothing changed at all. She still lived in darkness. She still walked in silence. And yet far away in the stars, someone was listening. A human traveler named Daniel had heard stories of a girl who once carried light in her eyes. He heard whispers in trade routes, in broken records, in forgotten songs. The story of the blind girl reached him, and it stayed in his heart. He wondered who she was. He wondered if she was still alive. And most of all, he wondered if he could help her. Leora, still broken and forgotten, had no idea that her life was about to change. No idea that a human stranger was walking closer and closer to her world. No idea that the darkness she had carried for 15 years was about to meet light again. But not the light of her past, a new light born of human hands. A light that would defy the laws of her people and the cruelty of Serac. A light that would return her vision and change the fate of both Eliari and humankind forever. Daniel was not like the other travelers who crossed the stars. He was not a soldier, not a merchant, and not a noble seeking wealth. He was an engineer, a builder, a man who believed machines and science could heal wounds that time could not. On every world he visited, he carried tools instead of weapons. He fixed broken generators for miners. He repaired water pumps for forgotten colonies. And when he saw someone suffering, he could not turn away. It was during his stay on the station of Vera that he first heard the name Leora. Old traders whispered about her in low voices. They said there was once a girl with glowing eyes. A girl who could see energy itself, but her gift was stolen. Her eyes burned, her spirit crushed. Now she was blind, abandoned, living like a shadow among ruins. The traders spoke with pity, but none had gone to her. The Eliari believed their laws were final. No one dared to break them, but Daniel did not believe in such laws. He believed suffering should not be eternal. He believed no one deserved to be left behind. That night, Daniel sat alone in his small cabin. The hum of the station engines surrounded him. He stared at the stars through the window. He thought about the story of Leora. Something in it would not let go of him. He remembered his own past, the day his younger sister lost her life because medicine had arrived too late. He remembered the promise he made over her grave. "No one else will be abandoned if I can help," he had whispered. And now across the stars, a forgotten woman needed him. His heart told him he could not walk away. The next day, Daniel gathered what he needed: medical supplies, his toolkit, and a prototype device he had been designing. It was a set of nanolenses, tiny machines shaped like raindrops of light. They were meant to repair damaged sight, to rebuild what was lost. No human had tested them yet, but Daniel was willing to risk it. He packed them carefully, knowing they might be the only hope for the blind Eliari girl. The journey to Leora's world was not simple. The Eliari had grown secretive, closing their lands to outsiders. Their patrol ships searched every vessel. Their laws declared it forbidden for humans to interfere in sacred punishment. If he was caught, Daniel would be arrested or worse, but he refused to turn back. He flew under false routes, slipping past scanners. Every time his ship trembled under patrol scans, his heart raced. But the thought of Leora waiting in endless darkness gave him courage. At last, he reached the ruined valleys where she lived. The land was quiet, broken by years of neglect. Tall cliffs cast shadows across the stones. And among those stones, a fragile figure moved slowly. Daniel watched from a distance. He saw a woman, her steps careful, her head tilted as if listening to the world. Her clothes were worn, her hair tangled by the wind. But there was something unbroken in the way she stood. Even in blindness, she carried a strength that time could not steal. He approached her carefully. "Leora," he called softly. She froze, her hands tightening around a stick she used to walk. Her voice was sharp, tired, guarded. "Who speaks my name?" she asked. "I am Daniel, a traveler," he answered. "I came because I heard your story." Her face turned away, her blind eyes staring into emptiness. "Stories are lies," she whispered. "Go back, human. I need nothing from you." But Daniel did not move. He spoke again, his voice steady. "I know what they took from you," he said. "I know you walk in darkness, but it does not have to be forever." Leora laughed bitterly, a sound heavy with pain. "No one can return what is lost, no one," she said. "They told me my light was cursed and I believed them. Why should I believe you?" Daniel stepped closer, his hand pressing against the small box in his pack. "Because I carry hope," he said, "and I am not afraid of their laws, only of failing you." The wind carried silence between them. For a long moment neither spoke. Then Leora lowered her stick slightly. "Why would a human care?" she asked, her voice softer. "Because I once failed to save someone I loved," Daniel answered. "And I promised never to fail again." Her lips trembled, though her blind eyes revealed nothing. For the first time in 15 years, a spark of something stirred inside her heart. A stranger had come, not to mock her, not to cast her aside, but to offer light, yet danger was near. The Eliari Council had long forbidden anyone to touch Leora's fate, and Daniel's very presence was already a crime. Hidden patrols watched the valleys, waiting for any sign of rebellion. If Daniel tried to help her, they would come, and punishment would fall on both of them. But Daniel's decision was already made. He would not leave her in darkness, even if it cost him his life. As the night grew deeper, Daniel extended his hand. "Come with me," he said. "I can build what was broken. I can return your sight." Leora's fingers trembled, reaching slowly. She wanted to believe. Though fear weighed on her heart, finally her hand touched his. It was the first time in years she had allowed someone to hold her, and in that simple touch a human promise was born. The night was quiet when Daniel led Leora away from the valley. Her hand rested in his, fragile but steady. Every step she took was heavy with doubt. Her mind battled between hope and fear. She wanted to believe this human, but memories of betrayal whispered against her heart. They walked until the moon rose above the cliffs. Daniel guided her gently, warning of stones and roots. Leora moved slowly, her blind eyes fixed ahead. In her chest, her breath grew faster. She had not trusted anyone in 15 years. Why now? Why this human? When they reached the small shelter Daniel had built near the rocks, he helped her inside. It was simple. a tent made of reinforced fabric, machines humming softly in the corners. To Leora, it was only sound and scent. She smelled metal, oil, and strange herbs. She heard tools clicking, a quiet rhythm of someone who worked with patience. She sat on the floor, her arms wrapped around herself. Daniel moved nearby, preparing instruments. For him, this was the beginning of his mission. For her, it was another test of trust. Leora. Daniel spoke gently. I need you to understand. The lenses I carry are human-made. They are not magic. They are science. They can rebuild what was destroyed, but it will take time, and it will take courage from you. She turned her head toward his voice. Her lips tightened. Your science, she whispered, is forbidden here. The Eliari say it is against the will of the stars. Daniel shook his head. Though she could not see, no will of the stars demands that you live in darkness forever, he said. They blinded you because of fear, not because of truth. Leora's hands curled into fists. She remembered the day Serac burned her sight, the laughter of the council, the silence of those who once praised her. Her voice cracked as she said, And if you fail, human, if your science brings me nothing but more pain. Daniel met her words with calm strength. Then I will carry that failure alone, he replied. But I will not abandon you, not like they did. She wanted to trust him, but shadows of doubt wrapped her tightly. In her heart, she heard the voices of her people calling her cursed. She remembered how children threw stones, how neighbors turned away as if she did not exist, how silence was the only companion left for her. What if this human was another liar, another cruel trick? The thought tore at her. Her trust was not a gift she could give easily. Daniel sensed her hesitation. He did not push. He only worked quietly. He opened the small case of nanolenses, the tiny machines glowing like drops of liquid light. To him, they were beautiful, his greatest creation. To her, they were unseen, invisible mysteries she could only imagine. She tilted her head, listening. What is that sound? She asked. It is hope, Daniel answered softly. Hope shaped into light. But outside the shelter, danger was already moving. Unseen patrol drones scanned the valleys. The Eliari Council had long feared rebellion. They had placed watchers near the ruins to make sure no one aided the blind girl. Now their sensors caught traces of human technology. A report was sent swiftly. In the council chamber, Lord Serac's eyes narrowed when he heard, The cursed girl is being touched by human hands, he hissed. Then she will die, and so will the human who dares to break our law. Back in the shelter, Daniel continued speaking to Leora. He told her of Earth, of his people, of the many worlds he had seen. She listened quietly, her fingers tracing the floor. Sometimes she asked questions. What does your world look like? It is blue, he answered. Blue oceans, green forests, white clouds. The words painted a picture in her mind. For a moment she almost felt like a child again, listening to stories by the fire. The bitterness inside her softened just a little. Still, she tested him with sharp words. Why risk your life for me? You do not know me. You do not owe me. Daniel's reply was steady. Because I see you. Leora, not the curse they named you, not the exile they created. I see the person who deserves to live, not just survive. Her throat tightened, her heart beating fast. It had been so long since anyone said she was more than a shadow. She wanted to deny it. But the warmth in his voice was hard to resist. As the fire in the shelter burned low, she finally spoke. I will let you try, human, she whispered. But if you betray me, I will curse your name until my last breath. Daniel nodded firmly. Then let me earn your trust, he said. In shadows or light, I will not leave you. Outside, the night deepened. Patrol lights flickered in the distance. The hunters of the council were drawing near, and though Leora did not yet know, the promise she had accepted would place them both in greater danger than she imagined. The shadows of distrust were still strong in her heart. But for the first time in many years, they were no longer alone. A human stood beside her, and his presence was a spark against the darkness. Daniel knew that staying in the open was dangerous. The Eliari patrols were searching the valleys, and the council's eyes were everywhere. If they found him with Leora, there would be no trial, only death. So he led her through hidden paths, down into tunnels carved long ago by miners. The air was damp, the ground uneven, and Leora stumbled more than once. But Daniel's hand never let go, steady and strong. Her distrust still weighed on her, yet she could not deny the strange comfort she felt in his grip. At the end of the tunnels lay a forgotten station. It was once a research outpost abandoned after the council shifted its priorities. Now it was silent, filled with dust and broken machines. Daniel saw more than ruins. He saw possibility. "This will be our place," he told her. "A hidden lab where I can work where no one can see us." Leora tilted her head, listening to the echoes. She could not see the place, but she could feel its emptiness, a hollow shell waiting to be given purpose. For days, Daniel worked tirelessly. He cleaned the rooms, repaired old systems, and powered the station with a small generator. The walls hummed softly again. Lights flickered to life. Leora sat in silence, listening to the world slowly wake around her. She asked questions about the sounds she heard. "What is that humming?" "It is the generator breathing," Daniel explained. "And that clicking noise. Machines speaking to each other, waiting to be useful again." Though she could not see, he painted the picture for her with words, and slowly the station began to feel less like a ruin and more like a sanctuary. When the lab was ready, Daniel laid out his tools, small silver instruments, wires thinner than hair, and the glowing case of nano lenses. To him they were familiar. To her they were mysteries. "Your eyes were scarred by crystal fire," he explained. "The damage is deep, but these lenses can rebuild the pathways. They can give you new sight." Leora listened quietly, her hands clenched together. She wanted to believe, yet fear burned within her. "What if it fails?" she asked softly. "What if the pain returns and nothing changes?" Daniel looked at her with steady eyes. "Then I will try again, until I succeed," he said firmly. "I do not leave broken things behind." His words struck her deeply. For years she had been the broken thing left behind. Every step of her exile had taught her she was unwanted. Now a stranger spoke as if her life still mattered. She wanted to believe, but shadows of doubt still clung tightly. Even so, she let him continue. She had lived 15 years in darkness. If there was even a chance of light, she would face the risk. While Daniel worked, danger grew closer. The Eliari Council was restless. Lord Serac demanded reports from his hunters. When they told him strange energy had been detected near the abandoned station, his rage burned hot. "Find them," he ordered, "and crush this rebellion before it spreads." Patrols moved silently through the valleys, their sensors sweeping every stone. The hunters of the council would soon find the hidden lab. Inside, Daniel adjusted the nano-lenses under dim light. They shimmered like tiny stars caught in glass. Each one was designed to weave itself into nerves, to restore what was broken, he whispered to himself as he worked. "Almost ready, just a little more." Leora sat nearby, her blind eyes turned toward his voice. Her heart raced with every word. She wanted to ask him to hurry, yet she also feared the moment it would happen. "What if I see something I do not recognize?" she whispered. Daniel paused, his voice gentle. "Then I will be there to tell you what it is." He trained her for the coming procedure. He asked her to focus on sounds, to breathe slowly. To steady her heart, he told her that fear was natural but courage was stronger, and though she did not fully trust him yet, she obeyed. Each word of guidance made her feel less alone. For the first time in many years, someone prepared her not for exile, but for hope at last. Daniel placed the case on the table. The lenses pulsed faintly, waiting to be used. He turned to her and said, "Tomorrow, we begin." Her lips trembled. "Tomorrow," she repeated, the word both frightening and beautiful She had waited 15 years for light, and now it was only one sunrise away, but the shadows outside were not still. The hunters had traced the trail to the tunnels. They moved quietly, like wolves stalking prey. Their scanners glowed in the darkness, and in the council chamber, Serac smiled with cruel certainty. "Tomorrow will not bring her sight," he whispered. "Tomorrow will bring her end." Inside the station, unaware of the coming danger, Daniel adjusted his plans. He promised himself he would not fail her. He would build light out of darkness no matter the cost. And as Leora drifted into uneasy sleep, she dreamed of stars she had not seen in 15 years. Unknowing that before her new sight could be born, she and Daniel would first have to fight for their very lives. The night was heavy with silence, but danger was already moving through the tunnels. The Eliari hunters crept closer, their scanners glowing faintly in the dark. They carried weapons carved from crystal, humming with deadly energy. Every step they took was measured, patient. Like predators closing in on prey, their orders were clear. Find the human, destroy his work, and erase the blind girl forever. Inside the hidden station, Daniel worked late. Unaware of how near the hunters were, he adjusted the final settings of the nanolenses. His hands steady despite the weight of his mission. Leora sat nearby, her blind eyes turned toward the faint sound of tools. She could feel the tension in the air, though she could not explain why. Her chest rose and fell quickly, her heart whispering of danger she could not see. Suddenly, the faint hum of machines outside reached Daniel's ears. He froze, his instincts sharp. That was not the sound of the generator, not the sound of his tools. It was something foreign, something approaching. He moved swiftly to Leora's side, lowering his voice. "We are no longer safe," he whispered. Her breath caught, fear flashing through her. "What do you mean?" she asked, her hands trembling. "They have found us," he said, his tone sharp and quiet. "We must leave now, or we will not leave at all." The hunters breached the outer tunnel, their lights slicing through the darkness. Dust fell from the ceiling as doors were forced open. Daniel grabbed his pack, sliding the nanolenses into a secure case. He pulled Leora to her feet. "Hold my hand. Do not let go," he ordered firmly. Her voice shook as she answered. "I cannot run fast, and then trust me to guide you," he said. And with that they fled into the shadowed tunnels. The ground was uneven, sharp stones cutting at their feet. The tunnels twisted like the veins of the mountain. Daniel pulled her forward, his steps fast but careful. Behind them, shouts echoed. The hunters had discovered the lab, their voices filled with anger. Blades of crystal struck the walls. Sparks flying into the dark, Leora stumbled, nearly falling. But Daniel caught her every time. "Listen to my voice," he said. "Step when I say step. Turn when I say turn." Her trust was tested with every heartbeat. She followed blindly, relying only on the sound of his voice. The hunters grew closer. Their footsteps thundered like drums in the stone. Energy bolts seared past, burning marks into the walls. The tunnels lit with flashes of deadly light. Leora gasped, ducking when Daniel pulled her down. Her body trembled, but she did not let go of his hand. Even as fear clawed at her, she held on, at last. Daniel spotted a narrow passage to the surface. It was dangerous, unstable, but it was their only chance. "Through here," he said, pulling her quickly. The hunters saw the movement and shouted. Bolts of crystal fire struck the stone around them. Rocks fell, the tunnel shaking as if the mountain itself resisted their escape. Leora's breath came in sharp gasps. She felt the ground breaking under her feet. But Daniel dragged her onward, refusing to stop. They burst into the night air, the stars above sharp and cold. The valley spread before them, endless and dark. But there was no time to rest. The hunters were right behind them, their weapons glowing in the night. Daniel spotted an old shuttle hidden beneath a cliff. Half buried in dust, it was ancient, damaged. But it might still fly. "This way," he said. Leading her toward it, her legs burned. Her body begged to stop, but she forced herself forward. Her faith in him was the only strength she had left. The hunters unleashed a storm of fire. Bolts scorched the ground, the air filled with smoke. Daniel shielded Leora with his own body as they ran. Pain ripped through his shoulder as a bolt grazed him. He stumbled but did not fall. Leora felt his weight shift and cried out. "You are hurt," she whispered, panic rising in her voice. "Do not stop," he said firmly. His voice strained. "If I fall, you keep moving." But she shook her head violently, tears streaming down her cheeks. I will not leave you. Not now. Not ever. They reached the shuttle, its metal cold and rusted. Daniel forced the door open with trembling hands. Inside, dust coated every surface, but the controls still glowed faintly. He pushed Leora inside, slamming the door shut behind them. The hunters surrounded the cliff, shouting, their lights flickering like predators circling prey. Daniel dropped into the pilot's seat, his wounded arm shaking as he pressed the controls. The engines groaned, coughing like an old beast refusing to wake. Come on, he whispered desperately. Come alive for me. Just once more. Leora clung to the seat beside him. She could feel the shuttle trembling, the air vibrating with energy. Outside, the hunters prepared their final strike, their weapons charged, the valley glowing with deadly light. Daniel slammed his hand on the console. The engines roared. Fire bursting from beneath the shuttle. With a violent shake, it lifted from the ground. The hunters fired, but the ship broke free, soaring into the sky. Inside, Daniel leaned back, his face pale with pain. Blood dripped from his shoulder, staining his clothes. Leora reached for him, her hands shaking. Do not leave me, she whispered desperately. You cannot die before I see you. Her words pierced him deeper than the wound. He looked at her, his voice faint but steady. I will not die, not until you see the stars again. The shuttle vanished into the night sky. But danger was not over. The Elyari ships were already rising to hunt them. And in the dark, Leora sat beside Daniel. Torn between fear and hope, her heart prayed for his life. Her soul prayed for sight, and the stars above seemed to whisper that both hung in fragile balance. The shuttle soared into the sky, shaking as if it might break apart. Inside, Daniel's face grew pale, sweat covering his brow. The wound on his shoulder bled heavily. Staining his clothes, Leora sat beside him, her hands trembling as she tried to steady his arm. She could not see his face, but she could hear the weakness in his breath. Fear crushed her chest, heavy and merciless. Stay awake, she whispered, her voice breaking. You promised me, Daniel. Do not leave me now. He gave her a faint smile she could not see. I keep my promises, he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper, but his eyes fluttered, the pain pulling him toward darkness. The shuttle drifted far beyond the cliffs, carrying them into empty skies. Daniel forced himself to guide it toward the shadow of an abandoned asteroid base. It was old, forgotten, hidden from Elyari patrols. The perfect place to disappear. The ship landed with a groan. Scraping against the ground, dust filled the air, but they were safe for the moment. Daniel tried to stand, but his strength failed him. He collapsed to his knees, clutching the case that held the nano lenses. Leora rushed to his side, her blind eyes staring at nothing. Daniel, you cannot fall now, you cannot, she cried. He pressed the case into her hands, his voice weak but fierce. These are your light, he said, even if I fail. They must not be lost. Her hands shook as she held the small box. It felt too heavy, as if it carried the weight of the universe. She pressed it to her chest, tears running down her face. No, you will not fail, she said. You are the first person who did not abandon me. You will not leave me like they did. Her words reached him like fire through the cold. He forced himself to rise, though pain ripped through his body. Together they stumbled into the hidden base. The halls were silent, filled with echoes of forgotten days. Daniel found an old chamber with working power. He laid out his tools with trembling hands. His vision blurred, but his will was unbroken. This was not just another mission. This was his promise, his reason to live, Leora. He said, his voice steady despite the pain. This is the moment. The operation will be dangerous. But it is your only chance, she stood quietly. Her blind eyes turned toward him. Her heart thundered in her chest. For years she had told herself hope was a lie, but now hope stood in front of her, bleeding, fighting. Refusing to give up, she nodded slowly. I am ready, she whispered. I would rather die reaching for the light than live forever in the dark. Daniel's hands moved with the precision of a craftsman. He cleaned the wound in her eyes, scarred from years of pain. He placed the nano lenses carefully, the tiny machines shimmering like drops of starlight. They merged with her nerves, weaving themselves into her broken sight. Each movement was delicate, every second filled with danger. If he failed, she would be lost to darkness forever. If he succeeded, she would see again. Leora gripped the chair tightly. Her breath came fast, her body shaking. Memories of fire and pain flashed in her mind, but Daniel's voice guided her. Calm and strong. Breathe, trust me, you are not alone, he said. And for the first time in many years, she believed those words. The operation seemed to last forever. Outside, patrol ships searched the stars, closing in, but inside the base, silence held them. Finally, Daniel placed the last lens, his strength nearly gone. He pulled back, his body weak, his hands trembling. "It is done," he whispered. "Now, Leora." "Open your eyes." She sat still, her hands gripping the chair. Her heart beat so loudly she thought it might break her ribs. Slowly, carefully, she lifted her eyelids. At first, there was only darkness, her chest tightened with fear. But then shadows flickered, light pressed against her vision. Her breath caught, her lips trembling. I see something," she whispered. Tears streamed down her face. The shadows grew brighter. Shapes formed. Colors bled into her world. The first thing she saw was light itself. Glowing golden and pure, Daniel leaned close, though his body shook with pain. "Tell me, what do you see?" he asked. His voice faint, she turned her head slowly, her new eyes blinking against the flood of light. And then, for the first time in 15 years, she saw a face, his face, pale, weary, but filled with determination. Her hands rose to touch his cheek, her fingers tracing the lines she had only known by voice. "I see you," she whispered, her voice breaking with emotion. Her tears fell freely, but they were no longer tears of despair. "They said I was cursed, but you gave me back my life." Daniel closed his eyes, relief washing over him. The pain in his body grew heavier, but he did not care. He had kept his promise. Leora's world was no longer darkness. Her eyes shone with new light, brighter than the stars above. But their moment of peace was short. The base shuddered as alarms blared. Eliari patrols had found them, their ships circling like predators. Leora's joy turned quickly to fear. She had only just regained her sight, and already the world demanded she fight to keep it. Daniel struggled to stand, his wounds slowing him. But Leora grabbed his arm, her new eyes blazing with determination. "No," she said firmly. "This time I will not hide. I will not be cast aside again." For the first time in 15 years she faced the coming storm with sight, and the hunters who thought they pursued a blind girl would soon learn she was no longer helpless. The walls of the old base shook violently. Warning sirens echoed through the corridors. Outside, Eliari patrol ships circled like hungry predators. Their lights cut across the asteroid's surface, searching for the fugitives inside. The Council's order was clear: capture the human, destroy his work, and end the cursed girl once and for all. Inside the chamber, Leora's breath came fast. Her heart pounded with a mixture of fear and wonder. For the first time in 15 years, her eyes were open to light. Every shape, every shadow, every flicker of flame felt like a miracle. Her vision was still new and fragile, but it was real, and she refused to let it be stolen again. Daniel leaned against the wall, his wounded shoulder heavy with pain. Blood stained his clothes, his strength fading. But his gaze remained steady, fixed on Leora. "You can see," he whispered with a weak smile, his voice cracked. But his eyes burned with pride. She looked at him, tears shining in her new eyes. "Yes, Daniel," she said softly. "I can see you." The moment of peace broke as the ceiling trembled under enemy fire. Dust rained down and the base shook like a wounded beast. Daniel pushed himself up, his voice urgent. "We cannot stay here. They will tear this place apart." He stumbled toward the controls, but Leora caught his arm, steadying him with surprising strength. "No," she said firmly, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "This time I will fight." For years, she had lived in darkness, powerless and forgotten. But now the gift she once carried, the ability to read energy, was returning. Her new eyes shimmered as streams of light appeared around her. She saw currents of power flowing through the base, through the walls, through the enemy ships outside. It was overwhelming at first, like standing in a storm of stars. But as she focused, the chaos bent into order. The world revealed its secrets to her once more. Daniel watched her in awe. "You can see the patterns," he said quietly. She nodded, her expression fierce. "Yes, the light has returned," she whispered. "And with it, the strength they tried to take from me." The Eliari broke through the outer doors. Their soldiers marched in, crystal weapons glowing. Lord Serac himself entered with them, his face twisted with cruel satisfaction. "So, the blind girl rises again," he sneered. "Pathetic. You will crawl back into darkness where you belong." His soldiers raised their weapons, ready to strike, but Leora stepped forward, her eyes blazing. "No," she said, her voice steady and strong. "For 15 years, You called me cursed, you cast me aside, you buried me in darkness. Her voice rose, echoing against the walls. But I am not broken, I am not cursed. I am light, streams of energy danced before her vision. She raised her hands, guiding them as if weaving threads of fire. The soldiers hesitated, fear flashing in their eyes. Bolts of crystal shot toward her, but the energy bent, curving away. Their own attacks were turned back. Crashing into the walls, the room shook. Flames burst across the stone, and for the first time, Serac's smile faltered. Daniel, weak but still standing, whispered in awe, "You are stronger than before." Leora turned, her gaze softening for him. "Because you gave me back what they stole," she said. "Because you believed when I did not." The soldiers attacked again, but Leora moved like the light itself. Every strike they made was answered by her sight of energy patterns. She redirected currents, disarmed weapons, shattered crystals with a single gesture. Her people once called her cursed, but now she shone brighter than any Eliari crystal. Serac roared in fury, raising his weapon to strike. But Daniel, despite his wound, stepped between them. "You will not touch her again," he said. His voice ironed before Serac could strike. Leora unleashed a wave of energy. It burst like a storm, knocking him and his soldiers to the ground. The light filled the chamber, searing through the shadows. When it faded, Serac lay broken, his weapon shattered. The soldiers fled in fear, their faith in him destroyed. Silence returned to the base, broken only by the sound of Daniel's heavy breathing. Leora rushed to his side, catching him before he fell. Her new eyes filled with tears as she looked at him clearly for the first time. His face was pale, his body trembling with pain, but he smiled at her, his eyes soft. You did it," he whispered. She held him close, her tears falling onto his cheek. "No, Daniel, we did it," she said, her voice shaking with emotion. Outside, the Eliari patrol ships withdrew. The Council's control weakened, their lives broken by the sight of the girl they once abandoned. Whispers spread among the people. The blind girl had returned, not cursed but blessed, not broken but stronger than before. And standing beside her was a human who defied their law. Together they had changed the fate of two worlds. In the quiet after the storm, Leora held Daniel's hand. Her eyes shone with light, her heart with gratitude. "You gave me back my sight," she whispered, her voice tender. "But more than that, you gave me back my life." Daniel closed his eyes, relief and peace washing over him. He had fulfilled his promise, and for Leora the darkness was gone, replaced forever by light.